from Alaska. I don't usually do videos like this where I just am like talking for a long time without, and I'm not sure, it's not, I don't have no like fancy stories or anything for you, but I want to share with you this understanding that I'm coming to as an educator and as somebody who's been in classrooms in various styles for coming up on 20 years. And like, that's insane to think about. Like, I've been teaching, I started out teaching spoken word and creating programming, and then creating art programming, and then teaching art, pre-K through 12, Montessori, charter, public school, private school, poor school, rich school. I've taught art in so many different ways. And I've struggled with being in classroom like every day, and I've been trying to like connect to why, because I love to teach. Like, it's something that I walk away from all of the time, and like God constantly pulls me back to teach. And please excuse my voice. I've been doing workshops all day with art teachers in Anchorage. So I know I sound like I'm about to cry, but I'm just losing my voice, and I don't even know, I shouldn't even be talking to y'all. I need to go to bed. But I'm like, this is heavy on my mind and like heavy on my spirit, and I wanted to share with you guys. So I have had these opportunities over and more over the last couple of years, particularly. I was having these opportunities before the summer of 2020, but particularly after everything that happened in the summer of 2020, and kind of how that opened up a cataclysm of people trying to figure out how to have a conversation around like what's going on with Black people and how do we talk about Black people, right? And so I had done these series of trainings with teachers in all different cities and all different kinds of teachers, not even just art teachers, about cultural awareness and how to have conversations with your students about things that are going on that impact maybe not your specific culture. Like, if you're a teacher at a school with like an all white demographic, how do you facilitate conversations around what's going on, why the Black people are mad, basically. And I had multiple schools where the teachers communicated like that they felt so unequipped to address issues that impact the Black community, that they just ignore it completely. And so they're teaching these curriculums and they just don't talk about Basquiat or Romare Bearden or anybody, because it's easier to just not go there than to face the backlash of saying the wrong thing, right? And for them, like, this is the way that they kind of try to maintain, I guess, a sense of like safety in their careers and also in the classroom. And it a lot of times when they would say that, like I could feel the like underlying understanding that that's not the correct way to go. But they just didn't have any way to go. And so I started out a couple of years ago addressing that by trying to provide like resources for them to gather language or direct students towards certain resources, like what books can you read, what films can you show, or whatever. But I have come to the conclusion over the last 2 years that telling a Hispanic teacher that they should read George Jackson and discuss it with their students or whatever, isn't the answer to the issue. And so the last 3 trainings that I did, I took a completely different approach. And I think it was interesting today because I had a couple of teachers like really come up to me and like have a dialogue of a sense of like understanding, because instead of telling them like, okay, you know, go access some Black literature, go access some Black art or whatever, I told them that it's not their place to do that. And instead of seeking books to read and seeking these resources, that they should be seeking the voices of the actual people. And the example that I gave was Bisa Butler. And I said, you know, I could teach this lesson about Bisa Butler, right? And her family is from, I think, Ghana. So I could Google 3 things about Ghana and 3 things about, oh, you know, I could jump up and say she's from Ghana and she uses African fabrics and she's, you know, she does this, she does that, right? But in reality, there's many cultures in Ghana. There's many identities. There's many experiences in Ghana. And it is really an act of erasure for me to reduce her experience to what I found on Google when I typed in Ghana and read a Wikipedia article, right? Particularly because there is so much content of Bisa Butler herself telling her own truth. And it is not mine to like listen to and then try to like reinterpret. It's for me to listen to and find what things that she says that I can actually play straight out of her mouth about her experience. Because as I've been like really thinking about my experience as a Black American woman, and I don't like when people try to like summarize what they assume that I've gone through. You know, like I didn't grow up in the hood poor with a single mom. I grew up in a suburb of Colorado with my 2 employed parents, you know, who were really about that education life, who always had, you know, steady careers, who always had steady things that they could pour into me. I didn't have any extended family around in Colorado when I was growing up. So there wasn't, you know, a bunch of aunts and uncles and cousins and all of that who were around. Like we were kind of isolated. And that is my experience. And and so when somebody jumps up and they're just like, oh, you know, well, Black people, they're feeling these things, they're feeling these things, they're feeling these things. Like, no, I might not necessarily feel that. That might not necessarily reflect my experience. And rather than encouraging somebody as an educator to assume what they think the general experience is, I'm out there. You know what I'm saying? Like you can Google me and hear me say what my experience is and what I feel. There's and so many others, you know, like you can Google. And so, you know, like I had a teacher, she came up and she was like, you know, you're right. Like I played Basquiat himself talking about his work in one of my classes, and the students responded completely differently than me just trying to assume, you know, what Basquiat was trying to say or what Basquiat was trying to go through. Like, why would I have to assume it when he's sitting right here on camera and he's saying it, and he's saying it himself? And so I had said that in a couple of workshops, but I wasn't necessarily like standing on the square of it. You know what I'm saying? Because I was just like, I know that it's kind of radical to tell you as a teacher that like, especially when we're talking about culture and identity, that it's not enough to just go and Google and then try to present, you know, like I've never been to Russia, but it's Russia week at school. So I learned these 5 things about Russia. Like, how reductive, you know? Like, I need to find somebody that has been to Russia, that is of Russia, to talk about what their experiences in Russia and what that means for them. You know what I'm saying? And we have all this access to technology and access to people and to individuals and their stories. It's almost intellectually lazy to not seek to create spaces for people to tell their own story. And as part of that, one of the things, like particularly with working with these teachers in Alaska, this is the 3rd time I've worked with teachers in Alaska. And Alaska has a huge Native population. Like when I got here, I was really surprised by how few white people I actually saw. Like when I'm getting off the plane, everybody was Black and Native. Like I didn't see white people for like a minute. And I was surprised at how many Black folks was on the plane. It was like 15, 20 of us on the plane. And I've consistently seen Black folks and Native folks. Like I was at the mall, it was like 2 white families there. Everybody else was Native. These are all people of color, right? And so one of the issues that had kind of come up was like, well, how do the teachers like engage the Native community? And I was like, ask the students, talk to the students. Like you learn from them. And you, in the way that you set up your classroom and you set up your lessons, create opportunities for them to tell you and not the other way around. Like I don't got no business getting up here in front of this classroom and talking about what I know about Samoans. Because if we're honest, I don't know jack shit about Samoans. And a Wikipedia article is only going to give me some surface information. Whereas I have this student who's in my classroom who is actually Samoan. And like, why am I not asking her? Why are y'all not like creating opportunities for the students to lead the learning? And, I was telling them, we unschool our kids. So our household is about child-led learning. And I was telling them, I feel like more of our classroom structure, particularly when we're thinking about cultural issues like that, need to go back into the hands of the people who are in the classroom, not into my hands. I shouldn't be trying to teach some tribal art project, or that's not my place to do it. And particularly when I have students in the classroom who are actually living that experience, And so I had some like side dialogues with a lot of the teachers today because, at first they were like, well, how do we do that? And I was like, listen, I'm not here to lecture y'all today. I'm going to show you. And so, we did an activity, and, I told them at the beginning, like, these are our objectives and that's that on that. And now we're going to do the activity. And I spent the whole time walking around the classroom, working with everybody. I made sure I talked to everybody at least twice. And I learned that from doing my art festivals, from when I ran my art festival in Aurora. And then I ran volunteer and like point person for a couple of other art festivals before I left Denver. And one of the things that I always made it a point to do, particularly in my festival, was I spent the day and I will walk from vendor to vendor to vendor to vendor. Is everything all right? How you doing? Y'all need anything? Everything all right? How you doing? You need anything? Because one, when there were issues that a vendor needed addressed, they weren't so aggressive because they knew me or somebody from my staff was going to come check on them. And two, like if they had a need, they knew that need was going to be met. So, they might have needed some water. They know I'm going to radio somebody bring you some water. Sometimes people are vending by themselves. They need to use the restroom. I'll come to sit in your booth while you run to the restroom until you get back and make sure, your setup is straight. And like that care, that attention, that taking time to ask people what their names are, what you got going on today, taking time to like speak encouragement in the suggestions. And so, today was one of the first times I was able to be like back in person, and I just modeled it. Like, all right, here's the objective, here's the lesson, here's the project. Go ahead and get started. And I'm gonna stop everybody in 15 minutes. We're gonna listen to these 3 songs, these 5 songs, whatever. And we're gonna listen to this song, and y'all are gonna do the work. And I just walk by and I talk to everybody, and I gave everybody like encouragement and suggestions that were rooted in encouragement. And I stopped everybody, and I opened up the space, and I asked for at least 3 people to share something. And from what they created, I asked them to create something that told me something about them as the teacher. I opened a space for me to learn from them. And I facilitated that conversation back with them. And people shared things that was like, I asked the class, I said, why did you become an art teacher? And one guy, he stood up and he said, I became an art teacher because my teacher in high school told me that my painting was unfortunate. And I'm in my 40s and I never forgot that. And I do not paint to this day. And he showed like his work and what he had drawn and how it reflected that experience for him. And it really like drove home the point of like, damn, you just walked up to a young person, a person who's trying to grow, a person who's trying to find themselves and find their voice. And instead of creating an opportunity for dialogue and to learn what they're dealing with, where they're coming from, what their skill set is, instead of taking an opportunity to connect and then to speak encouragement, like if it's unfortunate, like why is it unfortunate? And if it's unfortunate, which is not a word that should ever be used when we're talking to our young people especially, but like if it's unfortunate, then it's my job as the teacher to provide the instruction that's going to take it to the next level, right? And I was sharing with some of them, like, one of the critiques that really changed my career as an artist was Mr. Brooks. When I was in Atlanta, telling me like, what, your work is powerful and you should keep doing this, but you don't understand nothing about color and you need to study color. And I was expressing to them like why that was important to me, because he didn't try to cut down what I'm doing. He espoused the value of what I'm doing, and then he gave me the tools to take what I'm doing and move it to the next level. And not only that, like after he told me that, the next day he come sit in my studio with me, and we talked, and he talked about his colors and how he approaches the colors. So then he started giving me the game and recommending like and planting the seeds of like what I need to learn and how I can learn it. But at no time did he ever make me feel bad about not knowing about color at that time. No, I didn't go to art school. I'm self-taught. I didn't even know that knowing color was a thing, and like until he said it, like, okay, this is something that's important to know. And here's why this is important to know. And here's how this is going to grow you and grow like something that you already have a strong foundation in. And so it really I had like a real powerful realization today about what moved me away from like 9-to-5 classroom. Because like I said earlier, like teaching is a calling for me. Like I try to quit. I say I'm never going to teach again. And I end up right back in the classroom in some way, shape, or form. It always come full circle for me. I end up right back in that classroom. because it's something needed. But I'm finding something out deeper, not just about myself, but about the process of teaching, from shifting my conversations or my interactions from like the students, the young students, to the teacher as student, and thinking about like the ways that we engage in our classroom having to be so rigid and so quick. You know, I got your kids for 40 minutes, maybe once a week. And, you know, one of the teachers was talking about she sees 750 kids a week. And just like, dang, you know, like, can you memorize 750 names and 750 stories? And you can't if you're positioned only from the front of the room. But you got a better chance when you walk in through the classroom and you talk to each one of them, even briefly. You know, Jimmy, I like where you put the butterfly. Something as simple as that. Because Jimmy might tell you, you know, I always put these butterflies because my mom died and she loved butterflies. You ain't know that about Jimmy. You know what I'm saying? Jimmy may tell you, yeah, you know, I always put these butterflies in and I make them this color because, you know, where I'm from, this is the color of the flag. And you ain't know Jimmy was from another country, or that Jimmy has this culture in his household that's so important to him. So, you know, I don't know. I'm just really in a place of like completely rethinking education and the education system, and what we as teachers actually need to be empowered to do. And are we empowered to do that? You know, like, are you allowed in your math class to, while your students are working, walk through? You know, are you allowed to ask them to share their experience with you rather than me talking at them? And I don't know if we are, you know, because I just had like a really beautiful day where, you know, I had like a teacher came up and she showed me, she had Bisa Butler on her curriculum. She said, you know, I'm changing my lesson plan from what you said. And instead of me talking to the kids about why I think that they should think that she's important, I'm going to pull up her talking about her work and her identity and sharing the importance of her work so that they can hear it from her. I had another teacher come up and say, is this what you do? Is this what we should do? This is what you do. You walked around, you talked to us, and you know, I was doing my thing too. And I never get my piece finished when I'm working with them. And that's not even the expectation. It's that I came to each table, to each group, and I modeled the technique. You know, I had already showed the whole class the technique, but then I make it a point to come to each station, to each person, and I do a little bit of the technique with them and just chit chat a little bit, you know? Hey, can I use your paint? Hey, can I use your brush? I like how you did this. You know, if they seem like they are lost, you know, asking them why. Why are you, you know, you're having a hard time. Why? I had a teacher who, she was looking at everybody else's process and she was like, maybe I'm not doing it right because I want it to be in these specific places and done in these specific ways. And being like, you know, don't be focused on everybody else's process. You focus on yours, because the way that you do it is the way that your brain works. And that's the way that's right for you. The way that I do it, that might not be the best way for you. Ain't nothing wrong with that. It might, you know, she's like, it's going to take me so long. It might take you a little longer to do it the way your brain does it. But ain't nothing wrong with the way your brain does it. And your brain don't got to do it the way the person next to you, their brain does it. And like seeing her like really have that realization that like all of us is in here, all of us are different. We all learn differently. And so how do you now empower the students that are in your class to feel confident in the ways that they learn and in the style that they learn? Because everybody's brain, everybody's mind, it just works different. And there's value in that. It's valuable that it works different. And how do we empower? How do we create classroom settings that are more empowering and more engaging, student to student and student to teacher? Like, I don't know, I just get out the front of your class. You know what I'm saying? Get out from behind your desk. And start walking through, because you could really see like where people might be struggling and where they find their triumph, or where, you know, I noticed that you know, we have the student that has the insecurity. They're not sure. They're comparing, and I can see that in real time, and I can engage that in real time because I came directly to them. I came to their desk and I watched them do it, and I asked them about it. And I heard why. Oh, you got 5 brothers and sisters and you not the smartest of the 5 or whatever, you know, like it's amazing what, not just kids, not just student kids, but it's amazing what people will tell you if you just provide a space for them to say their truth. I don't know. I feel like, you know, I'm in this process of like developing a transition in an educational framework. And I've been working for a while on a project, but I really felt today like it all just like made sense. It all came together in a way that was like important. And that was on my heart. That was on my spirit. So I just wanted to share that. I feel like, you know, I had some real breakthroughs today. And I learned, because as a teacher, I'm always opening myself up to also be a student. And I think it's important that we remember, like, yeah, you know, you're a teacher, but you should also always be open to be a student. And that's that. I hope y'all have a fantastic school year.